One of the fundamental pieces of work that brought enduring transformation into the life of this individual was some work done to me by the support of a wisdom teacher that had done the work themselves. That's the way eldership and lineage works. Around a phenomena called codependency. This was to look at my way of being in relationships, and the more intimate the relationship, the circles of relationships that I had, from strangers to relatives, to close friends and peers, to more intimate relatives, to the most intimate of relationships, and finally to the relationship I had with myself. And how I modulated and adapted myself in order to seek approval and esteem, worthiness, and so on, for myself, by the ways in which I positioned other people, or the ways in which I behaved around other people in order to perceive them to be positioned in such a way that saw me find myself being approved or liked. You know, I changed myself, and based on your response to who I am being at the time, I then am able to like myself and accept myself. Now, of course, what happens is the more entrenched one becomes in this mechanism, the further and further away one gets from one's true self, or that stance of simply being content, being who I am, regardless of whether my presenting behaviour at the time might seem objectionable to other people, or whether it might seem accepted to other people. One can come to a place of being independent in the end and not codependent on the responses of others. From a place of this pure independence, which isn't really a thing, I'm just using it to categorise it as a place to be, in a way of being, the other side of a period of recovery from the prior place of being. And recovery is always what happens periodically until a state or a stage is reached in which one has recovered from the previous state. One is in a new consciousness or a new way of living in the world and operates out of a completely different set of mechanisms. So to arrive at a place of that sense of independence and then be able to be in relationships and be stable in one's own sense of dignity, integrity, self-regard, esteem and worthiness, that one can offer that into the mutuality of relationships. One isn't in a relationship to get anything, one is in a relationship to give and to sacrifice. That doesn't mean we don't receive as a result of doing those things. We receive in a much healthier way. We're able to receive the same with which we offer. And I do feel with relationships, and again, the more intimate the relationship, the more this is apparent, that we get where we're at. If we are in an unhealthy place, if we are operating out of codependent mechanisms, if we are living out of toxic behaviours, attitudes, unfinished business, then that's what we're going to meet in relationships. We get where we're at. If conversely we are living out of a healthy sense of being, dignity, integrity, worthiness, and esteem, that is self-generated, or that is based in a sense of presence to each experience, because we're present to that experience, because we're not governed by past tapes, parent tapes, unfinished business, and we're not concerned about the other person's responses. That's not to say we're arrogant and conceited, but that we're considerate, and that we are able to appropriately filter a way of being in order to not offend, but should offence be taken, we're able to sit with that, and we're able to work that through with the other person around what they're offended about and why and where that's coming from. Then, you know, we're essentially living out of a healthy way of being. Some of the ways in which codependence showed up for me were in my personal friendships and in my work relationships. So I would certainly be chameleon-like in that I would adapt myself based on what I perceive the other person to like. And I would say, yes, I like those things too, and I don't like those things, the same things that you don't like. And, you know, if there was a sense that that was met with approval, then I would continue to operate in such a way with that individual, whilst conversely with a different individual that had a different set of values and morality and likes and dislikes and preferences, then I would adapt myself accordingly to that person. So you end up being so many different versions of yourself that there is no integrated and integral and resolute sense of one's own self. There is no definition around who you are, and you don't know who you are. You come to the end of that and it's destructive, and it ends up a very lonely place to be, because those relationships aren't based on positive groundedness or a healthy sense of groundedness. And so we end up becoming so distracted and so lost in being this chameleon in the lives of others, that when we end up alone and desperate and we hit bottom with these toxic behaviours, we don't know who we are anymore. Who am I? What do I like? I don't know what I like. I don't even know what my gender preference is anymore. I don't know what I like wearing. I don't know what music I like to listen to. Or even, it can manifest in this kind of attitude of, what do you like? I remember once being asked in a relationship, would you like to go and visit my parents this weekend? Or would you like to go and party with some friends of ours? And my response was, what would you like to do? Do you ever do that? Do you ever ask the other person? Are you frightened of saying what it is you would like to do? Are you frightened of being honest? In that, underneath that, if you trace that back, is control. It's a controlling behaviour and it's a compliance behaviour. We're complying to the ways in which the other person is in order to not offend them. And the controlling mechanism is, if I upset the other person, if I perceive that the other person doesn't like me or doesn't like what I just said, perhaps they'll leave me. There's abandonment and rejection in there. Or perhaps if I perceive that they're upset with me, then I'm going to have to feel troubled feelings that I don't know what to do with. I have no emotional congruity, no emotional intelligence. How I feel is based on your responses to me. Totally codependent attitude. If you're upset with me, then I have to feel negative emotions and I don't know what to do with them. So I am, in every measure, going to attempt to control how you feel about me and about the situation and about our relationship by being foundationally compliant, by saying yes to you when I want to say no, people pleasing. And if I perceive that you're upset because of what I've done, then I'm going to come and apologise to you, even though in the light of reality, I haven't done anything, I've just been honest. And the world is riddled with this kind of difficulty in being honest with other people. We modulate ourselves, and sometimes there's a place for, from a healthy position, adapting how we phrase things. Having access to a great vocabulary is a good way of being able to express ourselves in a way which limits the impact that others' responses have to us. Regardless of that, if we do that in an unhealthy way, then we do lose our sense of self. We're going to have to find a way of being okay with other people being upset with us. Once I'm okay with me, then I'm okay with you, is our takeaway from this discourse, if you like. There's one takeaway at least. Maybe I'm a rescuer. Maybe I live out of a sense of what I call servant-heartedness that isn't that. That is that I work in charities, or I work in places in a way where there's other vulnerable people. I focus on other people's stories and other people's narratives, because then I don't have to focus on my own. Are you ever around gossip? Do you yourself gossip? The reason people talk about other people is so that they don't have to talk about themselves. Maybe I don't have a great sense of self. Or maybe I'm not comfortable being who I am, so I focus on the shortcomings of others. Maybe the esteem that I carry and my sense of codependency, the sense of low self-esteem or no self-esteem even that I carry, is bolstered because I'm continually pulling other people down below my own. I talk about other people rather than talking about myself. Do I use I statements? Do I say I? Or am I self-centered and neurotic and narcissistic? Do I constantly talk about myself because I have no empathy or a lack of compassion? Am I absolutely lost in my own self-concept, my own sense of my story and my narrative? Do I listen to the difficulties of other people and at the first opportunity identify so vehemently with their difficulty or their current predicament that I immediately negate what they said by talking about myself and my personal stories. Some recovery communities encourage this mechanism of talking about ourselves. There's a healthy way to do this and there's a really unhealthy way to do this. And there's a wisdom way of listening and developing listening skills, learning the other languages of the body. These are all tokens of recovery and methods of ways and mechanisms of seeing the ways in which we have recovered from those old patterns. Can I say no? Am I comfortable saying, no, this behaviour isn't acceptable? Am I honest when people tread on my toes? Do I say yes and then go home resentful? Do I do things I don't want to do? Do I comply, excuse me, to the requests of others when really I just want to say no? Do I over-explain? Excuse me again. Do I explain why I do things? Do I say no and then feel the need to explain why I've said no? Do I explain where I bought my clothes? Oh, I bought these in a charity shop. That's a nice jumper. Oh, it was £2. Do I need to find esteem in the ways in which I present myself to other people? Am I constantly modulating and moving and watching life from that egoic eye that is constantly filtering my performance in the moment and how I'm being perceived by others? Is my perception of other people's responses to me, do I blame them for that? Do I attribute my perception on other people? Do I say, well, he did, she did, they did, that did, it was this situation, it's because of that? Am I an over-explainer? Am I doing that right now in explaining this talk? Perhaps you judge, that's fine. Codependency is a destructive force. To move to a place of feeling independent and being okay with ourselves takes work, takes practice, takes the implementation of recovery, of doing things for ourselves, of running a nice bath, of having a candle, of eating well, of looking after ourselves, of using affirmations, of writing lists of things that we're grateful for, of being servant-hearted in the appropriate measure. We gain esteem by the things we do for ourselves, and we gain worthiness out of the things that we do for other people. Sometimes that can be the other way around. But nonetheless, we have to get those in proportion. It's great to be servant-hearted, of course it is. But if we're doing things for other people and we're working in environments and saying yes to other people because we don't know how to say no and because we don't want to look at ourselves, then we're going to end up in pain. We're going to end up with no self-worth, and we're going to end up in a place where we bottom out, and it's a heartbreaking stance to take. We lose our sense of integrity and we lose our sense of dignity. Come to a place of feeling okay, being yourself, and then be a servant in the lives of others.